Listen, I always say this when I'm on the show that if you can hear the sound of my voice, this is absolutely a good morning. My name is Clinton Paris, and we're live on In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody could be a star. And this is straight up the middle. And you will quickly notice that my voice is under duress, and it has been for a couple of weeks. And here's how it got under duress. Last weekend, I had the pleasure of going to something called the Battle of Algiers in New Orleans. It's a high school rivalry game between two black high schools there. My nephew was having senior night, and so my wife and I, we went to New Orleans to celebrate senior night, and we ran into something that's comparable to a mini Florida Classic between the schools. Tailgating and food trucks, 3 DJs on the scene, bands that would give both Bethune and FAMU a run for it. It was just a great, great time. And my voice was in recovery until this weekend. Because this weekend here locally in Tampa, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Zeta Chi chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi here at the University of South Florida. That is where I made Kappa fall 1985. And so we've been celebrating all week with campus events with the university, and now we've gotten into the weekend, and as we are prone to do, the brothers are throwing some parties. And we laid it on last night. We had a black and white ball, a complete capacity crowded event that just went into the night and into the morning, I would say. And as you can hear, my voice is still under recovery. The highlight for me of that night, DJ CEO and to Pete, I know I'll bring you on in a minute, Pete, is we introduced every brother who's ever crossed into the fraternity for the last 50 years, and the crowd was ecstatic to sit there patiently while we did it, and their families and friends, and it was just a great time. And I want to say this, Pete, as I bring you on, we still making new brothers. Just let that marinate for a second or two. But Pete, good morning to you. How you feeling this morning?
All right, my brother. I thought, such a great attorney and orator. I thought your barrister voice had won you a couple of jury trials or something.
It's really not bad.
I'm doing fine. Your nukes are excellent. You do good work. In fact, today they're funeralizing one of my old-time mentors.
Yes.
The late Charles Trickshot Chuck White from he's a Kappa brother. They're funeralizing him today. And, of course, one of the Diamond Nine guys, we have to, before we get started, have to pay homage to Eddie Adams. Eddie Adams passed a couple of days ago. And if you remember, he had the courage to run against Kathy Castor for Congress a long time ago. And just his great work in the vineyard of trying to help somebody along the way. So I wanted to get those two out the way this morning.
Absolutely.
Because we need, as you get older, and Clint, as a barrister, you help train young lawyers coming behind you. And one of the hallmarks of, he's an Omega, but he's a mentor of yours too, Delano Stewart always reminded me that you cannot be a part of the community if you fail to remain in the community to make a difference.
Yes.
And that's what Straight Up the Middle does. That's what In Touch News does. And that's what we do in our everyday comings and goings of life. We're directed off the beaten path to see somebody along the way that we've never met before to help them out.
Yes. You're right about that, Pete, so much. You're right about that.
And I know DJ has done that and all. We all do that.
Hey, that's why I'm sitting there because DJ did that.
Right, and recruiting is hard. You think about the 50 years of brotherhood at USF, and y'all were able to, I'm sure during this whole week, you and DJ look back and say, how many that are coming up behind us will have the fortitude and the stamina to outweight their enemies to do
Yes.
the work that is required. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, you're dead on point with that, Pete. You know, you mentioned Coach Chuck White. You're right. He's one of the great Kappas, a great FAMU alumni, and
absolutely, Hall of
just
Fame.
one. Most people don't realize he was. I think he was the first three-sport All-American that we had locally. He just was just a phenomenal athlete, great guy, and easy to work with. And yes, he will be sorely missed. And the brothers will be out in force. We recognized him last evening as well at the event and acknowledged his passing because he played just such a great role with so many people over the years, and the courage of Eddie Adams. Pete, just like you,
Oh my goodness.
Eddie stood on the other side of the fence. When it wasn't popular. Yeah. And he was not bashful about it. And he demanded the Republican Party treat black members fairly. For example, he fought for them to spend money with black media. I know that for a fact because I was a victim. Yeah. I was a victim of it at WTMP. He insisted that money flow back into our community if they wanted our support. And the other thing you mentioned about the mentor last night, I had the pleasure, Pete. This is one of my greatest legacies at the chapter. We have 5 lawyers at Zeta Chi from USF that are Kappas who also went to Stetson College of Law. It's just one of my greatest things that I'm so proud of. I'm just so happy to see that we're building that kind of a lineage and legacy. And you mentioned also, here's one thing that I was shocked at. So I'm going back to this 50 years of Zeta Chi at USF. Last night, of course, we talked about some of the great accomplishments and stuff. Local legend Leslie Miller was the first black student body president at the University of South Florida. Well, in that chapter of Kappas, we have subsequently had 5 student body presidents at the University of South Florida, which is, 50, 60,000 student. It's, probably, 90% non-minority school. And so there's a great legacy. And you mentioned something about the future. I am just so ecstatic about what future leadership we may have coming down the pipe, not just in the fraternity. You see it in our community. You see it in every way. If you look at it, and I think with an open mind. And last night I was thinking, I can't hold these 18 and 19-year-old new brothers at USF to the same standard I hold the 60 and 70-year-old guys and what they've done. But I can identify that they have some great talent, as we do in our community, and they are looking to really make a mark if we just be patient with them as they develop and grow. So I
think you're right about that. I think you're right because I think the balance is the brethren, regardless whether they're in a fraternity or not, the brethren has to know that those who came before them will have patience with them, but we also expect them to have the courage to truly step out on faith more so than whether they will be approved because of the initiatives they've taken that may be different from the past, but will strengthen our communities. That's the way I look at that.
The last thing I want to say. Go ahead, Pete.
When you talk about USF, you had, of course, Les was there, and remember Les came back to work on the campus provost, and everything. Yeah. And the 3 top black men that I've always admired at USF was Otha Favors, Les Miller, and Ernest Boger. Mm-hmm. And I think people remember Ernest I believe, was the first black to attend USF or something. But the bottom line is those 3 men are different organizations, but of the same faith.
Yes.
That is to uplift the brethren in the community.
And I would say,
with that done, and don't forget, Clint, we're honoring today also, this week coming up, our good friend, Carl Rickey.
Yes. And let me back up on that. Ricky Williams is also a local attorney who passed away recently. And I remember before I became a lawyer, he was instrumental in just encouraging me. And he was just such a friend in the community during his heyday as a lawyer and going on then later to run businesses and things in the community. But just a reflection, though, of all the people in this community that really do in a regular, normal walk. Everybody can't be Martin Luther King, but you could
That's
be as
true.
impactful as he was in your area and what you do. And I want people to always, to be encouraged in that regard. And one more thing, though, before we get going here on my topics, I want to thank Ed and Kendra for sitting in last week. I mean, I had to hurry back because Ed looked way too comfortable sitting in this chair. I mean, and the brother was on, so he ran out of here and went and did another show. He's all over town. Hot commodity. Want to thank Ed and Kendra for being here last week in our absence. All right, Pete. A couple of things on the agenda. I need to find out. Need to figure out how is this gonna go. And this is the death of Queen Elizabeth. Now, for most of us, first, she is the only queen we have known, and most of the Brits, she was the only queen most of them have known throughout their whole entire lives, and the stability that she provided, apparent stability anyway, to that nation and the entire Commonwealth of England, their whole United Kingdom, and all the various countries wherever they're located that are part of that vast group of allies. My concern is, does her death bring about a certain level of international instability, and does that open the door for instability to trickle over to the United States? And the reason I say that, Pete, is democracy is under attack. Democracy itself takes faith, because it takes faith to believe in the people and not the system. And so her passing, to me, I'm concerned about the potential instability it brings as it relates to democracies worldwide, and how that spills over into what's happening in America. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I've never gotten into the Queen, because when you look at the history of the British monarchy and how they treated their subjects of color, dehumanizing, slavery type mentality, the whole bit.
The whole colonialization.
The whole colonialization, right. So from a black perspective, she had the title, but she really meant nothing to us in a consistent, positive way. And when you look at the history of it, you can understand why. It was colonization, it was manipulation, and we just wasn't treated right. And even today, when you read the Daily Mail or whatever the major newspaper is over there, and you look throughout England, and you see how people of color, and particularly those subjects from Africa who remain loyal to her and their monarchy over there in Britain, are still being treated with racism, police brutality, and everything else. And the fact that they really ripped off Africa and stealing a lot of resources and everything else. So I think from a black perspective, we understand the historical aspect of the Queen, but I don't think too many will shed tears for her because of her track record. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, what about the political implications? The
Nothing.
spillover?
Nothing. It doesn't mean anything, because the world is changing. You're seeing a shift even in this country from democracy. You're seeing new countries that are taking over, and unless we really make some adjustments worldwide, America may not even be in the top 4 countries to be afraid of anymore. And because of the divisions within our own country, the obviously divide that's going on in our country, I think from my perspective, as a black man, I have to try to figure out how we're going to withstand the assaults that are going on within our country. Those who on the fringe, like the Oath Keepers and the Klansmen and all, and then the ones who supposedly legally representing us and stuff like that, that we're finding out more and more they are the real leaders behind things that are trying to tear this country apart. So that's the way I'm looking in the more philosophical and reality-based point this morning than I've done before, and we're in trouble. So with the king passing, it means nothing because I think Britain is a fair weather friend of America in some ways, and you're going to find out as it gets cold over there, and what's the take of Europe, including the Brits, with the lack of natural resources to keep warm.
I fully appreciate the colonialization historical aspect of the monarchy and all monarchies, and that is just a result of the time period and what was done. And you're right, we have to be more, I think, diligent looking at current situations and how different people are treated by those with power. And that's one of the things that I don't know how England ever gets away from that history that it has and the impact. My concerns are that within Britain itself, within the United Kingdom itself, you're going to have a litany of people, I think, now jockeying for influence over the prime minister. And I just think that that's going to be very, very interesting, something to play itself out. And we will know very shortly. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. You mentioned the Oath Keepers. And I think you referenced something about, people involved with that. I want to talk about that for a minute when we come back. I know it's not our regular topic. We're going to jump on that. So let's take a quick break. Pete, sit tight. This is In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody could be a star. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back after this message.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man. Call Ricky. Ask Ricky. You need medical or a lawyer? I got the man to do the legwork for you. We tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. Everything gon' be okay. Call Ricky, he coming. He taking care of state of Florida. Grab a pen of sundown 184-361-RICK. That's 184-361-7425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, plus your boy statewide. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361-RICK. Call Ricky, ask Ricky. It's a legal medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and giving you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361-RICK. That's 1-844-361-7425. Ricky. Ask Ricky.
All right, we're back live on In Touch News Radio, reality radio, where everybody could be a star. My name is Clint Paris, and I've got Pete Edwards here on the phone with me as we go through the litany of things moving the world this week, internationally and nationally. Pete, you mentioned something before we went to break that I want to unpack just a little bit. You mentioned something about the Oath Keepers and information coming out about them. I presume that you're referring to this list of members that just came out. Is that what you're referring to?
Absolutely. And that's why our young people, and it may take the fraternities and sororities and some of the Malcolm X type of thinking brothers and sisters to bring us back together, because when you look at that list, you're looking at sheriff people, you're looking at policemen, you're looking at chiefs, you're looking at attorneys, you're looking at judges, you're looking at some business people, and so I tie that list into what's going on. There's a new type of movement that is trying to send us back to pre-Civil War days, and the problem is our young people, they think we're crazy when we point out that history is repeating itself. And so when you look at it, and then you look at what's going on in the state of Florida, with the Florida Sheriff's Association, their hatred for even black law enforcement, that they would back Rubio over very conservative but a fair-minded police chief, Val Demings. You look at her history. Right. She lowered crime and everything, but she didn't just disparage everybody in the black community. So you see that, you see it with some of these involvement with some of these people that are running and have been elected from school board. You see this Christian nationality. All that's part of the Oath Keepers and 100%ers or 3%ers, and it's reflected even in judicially when you look at the attitudes that of like Steve Bannon, who's confident that they want to move cases around so they can get judges that are favored to this kind of stuff. And even in the lady that's involved in the Trump DOJ case, Federalist, but everybody knows what the Federalist Society is. It's a front from an extremist, right-wing legal point of view. And so that's why we're in trouble. And it's reflected, if our audience remember, the greatest number of people who've been involved in this January 6th and all stuff, a lot of that has to do with Florida-based people, yes, including Central Florida. So when people tell me Tampa's an up and growing liberal city, they're crazy. The people like the Oath Keepers and all that would not come to the Tampa Bay area unless they knew they had a base where they could be protected by some in law enforcement, some in the judiciary, some in business, and stuff like that.
Well, those people, I'm going to defend my local community and say that there's weirdness on the fringes of our city. The core of, I think, of Tampa and Florida is a little different, but you've got some weird pockets of folks that think in a kind of a crazy way. But when I think historically about the Oath Keepers and people finding out that elected officials, law enforcement, military, business leaders, people like your neighbor are part of something, an organization like that, listen, that is something that it should be shocking to people, but it's very reminiscent of what transpired with the Ku Klux Klan. People were surprised. Wait a minute, we have quote unquote normal people in this extremist organization, and I think that was kind of what the wake up call about that list was, to say, listen, there's some people putting on the face that they're very normal and trying to be progressive as it relates to our community, but in reality, they're supporting this extremist organization. I just want to unpack that a little bit, Pete. Let me move on to this other thing, because I like the law and I like things that happen in the law from an academic perspective, and also the overall political implications. And last week you had two things happen. We had this ruling about this special master. And while there's a legal piece to that, my concern is I'm trying to figure out the political piece, how that politically impacts what may be happening with the midterms and who may capitalize on it for whatever various reasons, and how that is being played out behind the legal maneuvering. So last week we had a Trump-appointed judge agree to appoint a special master regarding the documents seized from Mar-a-Lago. I'm not going to ask you to comment on why would government documents even be at Mar-a-Lago. I'm not going to do that to you, Pete. That's too easy. We'll leave that alone for another day. But from your perspective, this judge comes in and says, okay, I'm going to appoint a special master to figure out if there are confidential attorney-client privilege documents seized by the government. And the issue becomes, who does this having a special master really help, and who does it hurt as we go into the midterms?
Well, I think as far as the midterms go, most people aren't paying attention to the special master issue and all. Like most working people and those who are suffering and all like that, they're worried about the economy and a proper education and stuff. Now, from a educational standpoint, when you look at it, as I've stated over and over again, there is no independent judiciary anymore. They on both sides of the fence, but more with this extreme right because Trump has put them in place. They shop for judges that's going to be favorable. And when you look at his selections, then you can see why this lady and why those on the Supreme Court are going to make sure that they show Trump their loyalty come hell or high water. And so let's say with the special master, the Justice Department has appealed, but guess where it's going appealing to? The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta. Do people understand how right-wing stacked that is? That's worse than the Florida Supreme Court. So you even got 2 DeSantis appointments on there that was on the Supreme Court that Trump put on the 11th Circuit. There's a reason for that. And the reason is that by any means necessary, we're going to stop the stem of a true democracy and turn it into dictatorship or autocracy. But the average working person, they don't give a rat's butt about the special master. No, we know there's a lot of theatrical stuff behind it, but it's over, and we should teach our kids that there is no true independent judiciary anymore. It's
now,
just
Pete,
not.
now, let me ask you.
Just don't
So,
look at it.
right now, you mentioned something, and so I have to call throw a file when you go too far, Pete. Why would I convince my kids that our judicial system is not objective and based on law and order? What would be the upside to doing that?
Well, you have to point out to them, hey, how things are regressing. For an example, we talked about the Oath Keepers earlier and the number of different type of people. One of the best movies that I think that would be suitable as far as black history, as far as reminding our kids that if we don't stay together more, we're going to go back to that, is I would show elementary kids, and especially black kids and biracial kids, the movie 3 Lives of Mississippi.
Okay.
True story. When you look at the people that were killed, black and Jewish, when you look at the type of people that was involved in the conspiracy, the cover-up, the killing, eventually was fleshed out. When you look at the some of the other aspects, that was a true story. So you take a story like 3 Lives of Mississippi, and then that's part of, some people may say indoctrination, but I don't think so. You can't indoctrinate people on historical facts. You just let the facts be seen for what they are, true facts. So you take that, you go and you look at in Florida, and you go teach the middle school kids about, hey, here's a justice that they named a building for a law school building or whatever at Florida State, where a lot of black kids think if they go to FSU, they got it made. But anyway, they go where their money go, their parents go. But here they got a guy, Chief Justice B.K. Roberts, stone segregationist, the whole bit. And then so you teach them that. Then you take the judiciary and you use a quote from basically when they're talking about overturning some of these decisions on same-sex marriages. But the other decision that's also behind that is biracial marriage. And so when you look at some of these things, and yes, Clarence Thomas got a white wife, but you have to teach our kids these are the new ways of segregationists and segregationist sympathizers. And trust me, when you look at it from that educational justice point of view, then you can teach our kids that Clarence Thomas, while he may be liked from white people's standpoint, he is what you call a segregationist sympathizer, although he benefited from affirmative action. So you have to, you have to teach all that. Painful as it may be, we cannot keep avoiding teaching our kids that history is trying to repeat itself.
Well, there's no doubt that we have the clear evidence that there are people and elements in America that are pushing a certain agenda that takes us to a different time in America when things were not as equitable as they could be, And the question becomes, once you educate people, the question, not now, now what follows the next step in that regard. I think as relates to the judiciary one, I am not so quick to impugn it just yet. I'm going to let it play itself out. One, because I've dealt with judges, and I know that can be very subjective, but I'd say ultimately we end up where we need to be in the law, and I think in this case, as it relates to Trump, we're going to get there, and it may even be more palatable when it comes out that this Trump-appointed judge determines there's a very narrow strip of client-attorney documents that would not be subject to the search that was done at Mar-a-Lago. Listen, Pete, we're already at the halfway point of the show, so we're going to take another break real quick. We come back. We're going to roll this list. I might have to pick up my speed a little bit because we got bogged down with that. But listen, everybody hang in there. We're going to pay a few bills, take a quick break, and come back on the other side. This is In Touch News Radio.
And get the donuts. And get the donuts.
Reality Radio. Everybody can be a star. We'll be right back. Gotta hold my voice making, man.
Me too. I miss.
By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here-for-you.
This is the recipe you've been waiting for. A little touch of smooth mixed with a big touch of soul.
This is how we do it.
We are In Touch Radio.
Hello, Tampa Bay. This is Ainsley Doe with Florida Realty Unlimited. As a broker with 15 years experience and a veteran of the Navy, I do understand your needs. Real estate prices are up. So if you're thinking of selling your home, call me for a free market analysis. If you're planning to buy a home, please call me for a free buyer's consultation. For more information, call Ainsley Doe at 813-546-1954. Once again, the number is 813-546-1954. Or check my ad out in the In Touch News.
Nestled in the heart of West Tampa, the Maduro Marauder Cigar Lounge offers a wide variety of premium cigars from Esteli, Nicaragua. In addition, the lounge offers a relaxed environment for you to come back, lay, chill, and relax and smoke a great cigar. Visit us at our brick and mortar location, 1944 West Main Street, Tampa, as well as online, www.maduromarauders.com.
All right, we're back live on In Touch News Radio, Reality Radio. Everybody could be a star. I don't know what's happening in your neck of the woods, but we're based out of Tampa, Florida. For those listening around the country, listen, we have a 90% chance of rain. Might I suggest that you make sure you take your umbrella today as you go out, because listen, people are buzzing locally. Football season is back, and I know we have this Saturday here in Tampa. We have the University of South Florida Bulls taking down the Howard Bisons. It's going to be a great game because we're going to win as we continue our celebration of the Zeta Chi chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi's 50th anniversary here at University of South Florida. Pete, we're going to be out at the game. If you can get out there, come by. I will get you a tailgate ticket. You can come get some barbecue that's going to be provided by Brian Bethune. And we're just going to yuck it up and have a real good time in the name of camaraderie and fraternization. And it's just going to be a really, really, really good day. But I know all around the country, Pete, people are out and about, going to various games, celebrating their ball teams, and kicking off the beginning of fall. And did you see what happened down in Miami last weekend with FAMU, your wonderful Rattlers? They went down to Jackson State, I guess.
Under the weather. I was under the weather, but I watched it.
Yes.
I was not surprised. And see, that's another thing about reality, where in our community, we run from dealing with issues like that, but yet in the community, we want to pay more attention to some lady that's posing in front of the snake versus the way our athletes are being treated by the university, which is crazy to me. The consistent pattern in HBCUs, including my alma mater, FAMU, of messing over students with financial needs and all, forcing athletes to pay for their own way to summer school, not providing them a meal ticket, that kind of foolishness. When you get a consistent pattern like that, that's detrimental to the future of our community and our educational piece. So I looked at the game. I wasn't surprised about the score because the mentality was different. In fact, I won't be surprised if we lose to Albany State today in our home opener in Tallahassee. It was a psychological defeat as well as a physical defeat. But the psychological defeat has been lingering on ever since before the start of the season. And I listened to the president's convocational message yesterday.
Okay.
In Lawson's, Al Lawson's gym or whatever they call it now.
Mm-hmm.
And it reflected to me that there's a disconnect to what should be a strong connection with the students and their needs versus what aloofness is or just totally tone deaf.
Yeah,
and we got to stop hiding that because
right.
we can't. And we even do that in the churches too, Clint. We do that with our churches, and we can't keep covering up and then expecting our young people to believe in us and want to come. I give you a good example. You look at the trajectory of what's going on with North Carolina A&T, and then you look at what's going on with FAMU. There's no way that A&T should have almost 14,000 students over FAMU, in which we led total enrollment in black colleges and universities, if you recall. When you look at athletic programs, even before Deion Sanders got to Jackson State, which is in a tough city of Jackson, Mississippi, the whole bit, Jackson State laid all Division I AA schools, we used to call it, in attendance for games. And they had less to work with FAMU. So it's a psychological effect, a mental breakdown, and so we're in trouble at the school as we try to build an athletic program up, because people are seeing over and over and over again the same issues coming up with regards to financial aid, how we treat athletes, and then what made it really worse, and they can get mad at Roland Martin all they want to, but if you look at how he talks about how the band was treated.
Yes. Right.
See, that's foolishness.
Well, you're right about that. You would think that
Miami.
You gotta, the band is the university's flagship marketing and PR vehicle.
Absolutely.
It is the flagship. That program has to be not only from what you do from a recruitment standpoint. You can't bare bones those kids and stick them out there on the road like that just because you can. They've got to get the best that you have to offer because they're the ones bringing in. I think they were over at I think some event in France this summer. The band went and performed in Paris.
That's a heck of an event.
Yes,
absolutely.
You can't do that, and I think that's a component of how sometimes we handle stuff. But I'm disappointed in that. But let me say this though, I think there's something nefarious afoot, Pete, that in this recent resurge of popularity and the desire of people to attend our HBCUs, that we get such negativity come crawling out about the beloved FAMU school. Not to say that it's not right or wrong. I'm not going to get into that or real or something that has to be dealt with. Let's deal with it. But I'm not going to have, people go too far with this downing FAMU, because that's why I did not go to FAM, Pete. I'm going to tell you right now. I was concerned about the drama. That's the word I'll use. I was worried about the drama. I was going to college on a wing and a prayer, right? The last thing I needed was to also have a university be part of the problem as I try to get my education. And I wanted to be at a school where I thought that, look, I could just deal with just being a student, and this other stuff would not be play a role. But I'm going to let that play itself out in the political front, because I think long term, there could be ramifications that we don't really appreciate. But we need to do all we can to hold our But we need to hold our HBCU administrators accountable and make sure they do the job that needs to be done. All right, Pete, I got a couple more things. I just have to get your opinion on before we end up our show, because I know the time is running by real quick. Just a couple light things. One is my man Joe Biden. We got Carl the trucker somewhere on the road, and he's probably beeping his horn right now because I called his name. And Carl is Joe Biden's guy. He's all in for Biden. Biden roared into Pennsylvania over the last week or so with various speeches, Pete. And there was a backlash on the Republican side because he called out your Republican brethren regarding their willingness to embrace some radical elements, some anti-democratic elements, and he called them a threat to American democracy, and even used the word fascist, I thought, at one point in time regarding some of the, what he called the MAGA Republicans. Is Biden seeking to and succeeding at further dividing the Republican Party with his latest attacks?
No. Most of us who understand the principles of the true Republican Party have switched over to independence, or we're just bidding our time to take over the Republican Party from those Republican name-only people at the extreme right now. I don't know why Biden would receive backlash from, let's say, from us as the Republican Party, as people see it now, is when he told the truth. We understand, and I'm looking at it from an extreme right-wing point of view, membership of the Republican Party that's actually running everything right now. We understand that the more Biden bash us and all like that, the more he helps us recruit those who are on their last power surge, I may say, before things really flip in this country.
Hold on, Peter. Hold right there. Okay, explain to me how Biden saying the Republican Party is controlled by MAGA extremists and fascists helps recruit more Republicans.
Well, what I mean by that, Clint, is bringing out people who are comfortable in that sort of Republican thinking, so they don't have to hide beneath the shadows anymore.
Okay.
So by Biden doing that, it makes us feel comfortable. If I'm looking at it from that perspective, of course, makes us feel comfortable in saying, "Hey, we're proud of it." All you have to do is look at people like Steve Bannon. You look at some of the other people; they're very proud of it. And even in the state of Florida, the DeSantis type people like that and others, they're proud of it. So it's going to help them bring out the vote more. And this off-year election. And not only that, giving it a good example in the state of Florida, because Florida is trying to compete to outdo Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama, it makes it easy for the extremists in the Republican Party to take control over everything. We realize that black people aren't going to vote. That's a given. So we don't have to worry about the blacks. And then remember, the top four things in the extremist, fascist part of the Republican Party, they're in Republican name only, the top four enemies that they want to knock off, if they can knock them off together or one by one, rated number one, Afro-American. Rated number two, the Jewish community. rated number 3. The gay community, rated number 4. That's coming up strong is the young people that are have been produced by biracial marriages. Number 5, people of deep colored skin who, while they may be Hispanic or Latino, whatever word they use now, but of deep colored skin who might be here legally as an immigrant, but they're all considered illegal on the extreme right wing of the Republican Party. So you got those, that's the top 5 for the extreme right. And so we know that the top 4 aren't going to, at least the top 3 aren't going to get together as they used to put up a gallant fight. So it makes it easy from that political perspective.
Pete, that was a very eloquently put. I thought it was very rationally thought out. The only problem with that whole line of thinking is it's just wrong. I have confidence in this election.
Oh, it's wrong.
I think it's wrong.
It's wrong, but that's what it is. It's wrong, but that's what it is.
Because here's the deal. Here's what Biden is making it hard to do. And you almost told me that. It's making it hard for regular Republicans to quote unquote come home and stand next to the MAGA Republicans. And so guess what they got to do? What you say, independent or be on the sidelines. So that's really what I thought his goal was, to make sure you all don't reunify. You don't constitute yourself.
We don't have to in this off-year election because there's so much division within the Democratic Party. You see that in the state of Florida. I look at what's close to home.
All right, so let's do this real quick. We're going to take this last break. We're going to come back free. We're going to flesh that out. And I'm going to take a couple pot shots because it's just so easy right now. One is regarding the indictment of Bannon, and the other is William Barr is coming in and throwing some haymakers at Trump right about now. So stand by, everybody. We're going to go in this last segment in a few minutes.
Fake news.
This is InTouch News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. We'll be right back after this message.
This is the recipe you've been waiting for. A little bit of smooth mixed with a lot of soul.
A real player.
You're listening to In Touch Radio.
Been in a car crash? Call Ricky. Don't know what to do? Ask Ricky. We will connect you with a lawyer and doctor experienced in auto accident injuries. Call Ricky at 844-361-7425. After an auto accident, you have 14 days to seek medical attention. You may be in pain, so call Ricky, ask Ricky for your best options. 844-361-7425. Call Ricky, ask Ricky is a legal and medical referral service. The lawyers in our network pay to receive referrals.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
When you've been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Paris from the Law Office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, Attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the Law Office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
We're playing your favorite old school. Today's R&B. With a smooth touch of jazz. You're listening to In Touch Radio.
All right, we're back live on InTouch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star. I've got my man, Sweet Pete Edwards, on the phone lines this morning as I sit here in studio. Pete, I'm trying to make it to the end of the show. My voice is waning as we go, and I know it's just going to get even worse this afternoon, going to a tailgate with the USF Howard football game and then into the game itself. And I'm trying to make it through, but I got two more things I want to get your perspective on and let you share with the people your insight. One is regarding what is going on with William Barr. I mean, he seems to be ramping up his rhetoric regarding his perspective on Donald Trump's legal issues, and he's much more pointed and critical than I guess we were. I guess I was expecting from him to go. What are your thoughts on what's going on with William Barr?
Well, number one, he's trying to do everything he can to sell books. Number one.
You said he's selling books. Because I'm buying the book. I told you. Did I say that? Did I tell you that? I am buying his book.
Well, I encourage young people all the time when they check out books or when they read social or political viewpoints or whatever, they should not only read what's favorable to them, but they should be in the forefront of reading what the opposition says.
Yes.
And so Barr reminds me that he's trying to salvage his standing as a true conservative lawyer, former attorney general.
Why would he need? Why would he need to do that? What makes you say he needs it?
Well, because it's similar to what went on with Robert Bork. And you remember how Bork was up for a Supreme Court nomination.
He got borked.
Yeah, he really did. And then you look at Barr wants to be in the standing of conservative federal lawyers and judges. For an example, like William Pryor.
Okay.
So you have, from a legal standpoint, not listening audience. That's why you don't have to be a lawyer to understand a lot of stuff that goes on politically and socially with those who are in the legal profession. You just have to do some reading and research.
Yes.
And you can make it hobby over a good glass of wine and cheese or whatever and do that. But so that's the thing. And then Barr is it suits him now because he realizes that Trump's demise will not be done by liberals and all. It will be done within those who believe in Trump. And as his power is diminishing slowly but surely, then Barr can put himself in a position of being, let's say, an advisor to somebody like DeSantis if he winds up being the Republican nominee for president, or someone like I'll tell you a good example of it, or someone like Barr wants to be in a position to help out somebody like Senator Tom Cotton.
Or what about Nikki Haley? With the same kind of line where he gives her an authenticity?
I think the lady governor from South Dakota, Naomi Combs, even though she's done a lot of stuff that's questionable, she would be in a better position to be a presidential candidate more so than Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, when she appointed Tim Scott, it wasn't because she believed in diversity. Nikki is what you consider a darker hue Indian, but she appointed Tim Scott on the basis that he could be a front for diversity within the Republican Party in South Carolina, and yet at the same time would not be a threat.
You know, I was surprised to hear Barr come out the way that he did, having been being inside but you're right about I should not have been, because I thought he was a true Trumpite. What he basically said is, no, I'm as political as everybody else. I do, and I'm a capitalist. I need to sell books. Hey, who am I selling? But now, the only reason I'm buying the book is I think that you're right about the demise of Trump. Trump has been empowered by people, good people, remaining quiet or going along with him. You're right. You know, some people stood up to him, but too many good people went along with Trump or flipped the script like Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham initially said, hey, this guy's, he's bad news. Then when he realized it was not politically expedient and he wanted to attend more free buffets and luncheons and receptions, as the lady said, he eats more shrimp at the buffet than anybody, he switched over to, hey, Trump's a great guy. But Barr in this case, I thought was interesting that he went that way because who's going to buy his book? Who's going to buy a book by a right now in the Republican side of a guy that's bashing Trump? Because everybody's pretty much got to show fealty if you want to survive in the Republican Party right now. So I was just surprised that he did that. I was hopeful that he might give cover to other Republicans who might think it best they speak up. And I'm looking for somebody like
they didn't speak up?
Go ahead.
The other reason why they didn't speak up, Clint, have you thought about it from this perspective, that those in Trump's circle who joined the Trump circle and should know better, that they might have quietly benefited through some things financially?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, that's the shameful part. That's the shameful part about this. I think more than anything else, that's what people have been doing along the Trump, because they've realized, hey, this is the kind of guy, he doesn't mind you making a couple bucks off of him. That's not it. And I think this has been very profitable. Trump has been very, very profitable for a lot of people. Now, listen, Bezel just told me I've got 5 minutes left, Pete. I have to get your comments on the perils of none other than Steve Bannon. It just seems like he keeps getting in hotter and hotter water. And last week he was indicted for fraud regarding this whole charitable Build a Wall initiative where they raised $15 million and funneled it back to some organizers and things of that nature. Is Steve Bannon in real trouble, and is that going to be some spillover for him? Go ahead.
No. He's not in real trouble. He's not going to ever do any time in jail. And people got to understand, and this is what we need to, when you're talking about pure political science, this is what we need to teach our young people, particularly those in high school and college. Bannon represents the front guard of people who, by any means necessary, will tolerate people like Bannon and what have you, those folks, as long as they keep blacks and darker Hispanics and gays who are not conservative behind them. So he represents the front guard of what it takes to keep everybody else behind. That's why he's so popular. That's why he's no different than Alex Jones and a lot of them, no different than Jim Jordan in Congress and all like that. The thinking in America now is by any means necessary, as long as we don't lose our power as a white male-dominated country in thought, word, not necessarily positive deed, we're good. So we got to tolerate people like Bannon and Mark Meadows and all like that. Okay, one way or the other, even, outside of these New York charges, I doubt they're finding guilty of those because they can stretch it out forever. Bannon knows what he's doing, and so he represents whatever it takes to stay in power and to minimize those who are trying to really get equality. And that goes for good white people who can't unite within themselves because of their heritage.
Right, yeah. Listen, I think Bannon's going to jail. He's going to plead out. He's going to be like Cohen. He's going to cut a deal. I think he's going to do about 18 months. We want to get the message out that, listen, if you do corruption associated with Trump, eventually the long arm of the law is going to grab you, and there's nothing Trump can do about it. So I think Bannon is in some real trouble, but Pete, we'll let that play itself out. Belzil is telling us that we're on the last little bit of our time. Pete, what would you like to leave for our listeners as they go into next week for them to ponder and think about and maybe come to grips with the that's in their mind? What would you say?
I like to leave with our listeners to think about. Teach those behind you that if we want to slow the roll of a repeating history where we go into a totally segregated society and a cruel society against the top 5 groups, particularly the African Americans, who's number 1. You better start reading more, and you better start paying attention to vote. The number of people who don't want to vote is ridiculous.
Yes.
What behind them is the other group of people, because they've gotten their checks now, they're not interested in voting.
All right, thank you very much,
you
Pete.
You can laugh about that, but that's what it is.
Thank you very much, Pete. Listen to all the
brother.
listeners out there. Appreciate you all tuning in today.
And what time you'll be out at the tailgate?
Man, I'm getting there about 3 o'clock, man, with a big hat on to block that sun and that rain. This is In Touch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody can be a star. Go Bulls.
Go Bite. And get that check. And get that check.
Oh, man.